Good evening and welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. We're both with Kirk and JB here. JB, I saw you post something that said that the other day someone pointed out to you that it's okay to tear down statues because they were monuments to slave owners. Well, that being the case, what would be left? I mean,
any of our
right. Washington was a slave owner, so we're going to tear down Washington, D.C.,
Monument.
the White House, which is property of swampland that he sold the country, the Washington Monument we need to tear down. Thomas Jefferson, who was the brightest by far of all Americans, he was a slave owner. We're going to have to tear down the Lincoln Memorial because in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, he wanted all blacks put in concentration camps because he felt they were not capable of integrating with Americans. People also said, that I read the sign saying that they built America and were not compensated for it. That's really not true. Slaves had very, 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 very little to do with building the country. They worked farms in the South, and of course the North destroyed all of the value of those properties. And it's been, last time I checked, 250 years since anyone was enslaved in this country, and that's about 10 generations. So if you're still fixated on that, you've got a serious problem breaking free and being responsible for yourself. I just want to point out again that while the officer that strangled George Floyd was committed an act of manslaughter at the very least, and he is unlikely to live very much longer. I mean, he'll be convicted, he'll be put in jail, and he'll be harassed badly in jail. He'll probably commit suicide. Life will be so miserable for him. There's a couple of things, though, that ought to be known about him. Do you know what his job was before he was a police officer?
Was he military? I don't know.
Yep, I looked it up.
I would have guessed. That's often
That's my guess.
Yep. 2 tours as a military cop. One stateside,
I've
one
said
in
for
Germany.
years, the first step in fixing the police is we don't allow ex-military anymore as police.
That is correct.
That's the
Good
first
thing.
step.
Good thing.
You are correct. You are absolutely right, JB. You want to resolve the policing problem in this country, stop hiring ex-military. What are they taught in the military? To kill.
To kill.
Right. That's what they're taught to do. As a matter of fact, in the military, because most people don't like killing, they actually indoctrinate people to justify them killing. So if you want to fix the police force and the FBI and all of these organizations, stop hiring anyone who has ever worked in the military. And as a nation, stop praising the military because it is amongst the most disingenuous, most dishonest, most counterproductive, least free organizations in the world today. Yeah, he did 2 tours. Do you know what happened to the officer the day before he killed George Floyd? Because the guy was a jerk and he was pro-military and military trained, so he had no regard for life. That's just the nature of it. There is no indication the man was a racist. But he had something fairly traumatic happen in his life the day before.
Don't know.
No one wants to mention it because they want to present this under their view, which is that he was a racist. He wasn't a racist. His wife filed for divorce the day before this happened.
He was very angry.
Yeah, man was just disappointed. He was angry. He was having a really, really bad day. Justify what he did? No. But if you're looking for the reason he did it, he didn't do it because he was a racist. He didn't do it because he had no respect for blacks. He did it because he was an idiot suffering from both the corruption of the military and from the disappointment of his wife filing for divorce. That's why he did it. I guess that doesn't.
And he knew he'd probably get away with it.
I don't
That's
know.
the other part of the problem. The police
Yeah,
have way too
that's
much of
for
a
us
tendency to
and
back each other up. That brotherhood
Yes, they do.
mentality of we all
Yeah.
cover for each other.
Yeah, it's like the military. What we have found when the U.S. War College did analysis of the military, they found that the go-to response for all enlisted and all officers is to lie. Given the choice between telling the truth and lying, they will turn to lying most of the time. And the same thing is true with police. There's a reason that the justice system in America is so terribly flawed, is that police follow the go-to strategy of the military, which is to lie, and they actually justify it. They think that lying is the appropriate thing to do. Don't turn on your brother, cover for him, no matter how heinous his
versus
actions.
them mentality.
Correct. Yep, of the military and of the police force.
Yeah.
We have a serious problem. We've been talking about it on this show for a better part of 20 years. We have a serious problem with policing that has nothing to do with racism. And the problem with policing is that they're belligerent. They are way too aggressive. They're way too into control and depriving people of their liberty. And they are way too prone to be dishonest. And so we have a terrible problem in this country with policing. But the answer is not anarchy. And that's what, I guess, in Seattle now, there is the police-free zone. There's places in Seattle where they've actually, and also in Minnesota, where they've disbanded the police. They've created barriers, and they say that we're going to have a love fest, and we're going to replace the police with community observers. Well, the people that want this are the looters. That is not going to work. The bottom line is that if you study the U.S. Justice Department statistics, what you will find is that if a black is killed, that 90% of the time a black is killed by another black. Black lives do matter, as do all lives. And if you're a black person, you ought not be pretending that you are treated inappropriately by whites and that whites have it in for you and that are racist and that are killing you, because that simply isn't the truth. The truth is blacks kill 90% of blacks that are murdered. And they only represent 12% of the population. So for blacks to be responsible for 90% of black deaths, representing 12% of the population, they're stunningly more lethal than anyone else. And you need to deal with that reality. Those are facts. You're entitled to your opinions. You're not entitled to your own set of facts. And the second thing is that if there is a murder, and it's an interracial murder, and the two people involved are Caucasian and African American, 85% of the time, it's not the black that is killed by the white. It's the white that is killed by the black. So the people that ought to be protesting are the whites against blacks based upon the actual statistics of interracial crime. So if you're African American or you're white and you're out protesting because Black Lives Matter, you're an idiot. You're incapable of actually figuring out what the problems are, what the facts are, and who's responsible. You know, to take the inappropriate death of one individual and to turn that into national protests, worldwide riots and demands for all sorts of additional benefits, where the protesters have killed far more whites and cops, you have a serious problem. You know, we have an irrational nation. We have a nation where nobody wants to be responsible. Nobody wants to be accountable. But before you go off and protest, you ought to know the facts. Fellows, what do you, other than the comment about the police and the military, any thoughts before we move on?
Well, I've heard the first things in a long time that, because I don't pay any attention to presidents in general for many, many years, I heard some stuff about Trump, and I'm going, this guy is really a nutcase.
What did Trump say that caused you to think he was more of a nutcase than normal?
I hadn't paid much attention to anything you said for a long time, but I mean, his little Bible toting thing, and his then he did the oh God, what did they tell me? This I don't know. Somebody was rattling off line after line after line. I'm saying, he really is a strange duck. Now that I'm not letting off Congress. The whole bunch of them are just.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah.
They just got nothing to say at all.
The difference between Trump and previous presidents is that Trump doesn't have a filter.
He has a Twitter account.
Yeah, he doesn't have a filter. So every president, Obama was as big a narcissist as is Trump. It's just that Obama was a bit more refined about his narcissism.
Well, he kept up his pretenses.
Right, and so Trump comes across with the only thing that matters to Trump is Trump.
Yeah.
And it's so childish and so obvious that just everybody would say, God, every time he opens his mouth, it's all about me being great, and it just rubs people wrong.
Yeah,
the guy has
the one that got me with Trump was about a month or so ago, just before all this started happening, and he was talking about governors going into mutiny, and he goes, well, one of my favorite movies is Mutiny on the Bounty, especially when the people need the captain. I'm like, you're seriously comparing yourself to the captain in Mutiny on the Bounty? That dude was a tyrannical dictator.
Yes.
It's like, and people thought it was a great statement. That one boggled my mind. I'm like,
he was a little rowdy on
this movie.
Yes. Have any idea why the people mutinied against him, and why the actual mutineers were held the high moral ground?
Yeah.
But they really did.
He doesn't know his favorite movie, or he is that much of a
out of it
dictator, so to speak. Or what? Dictator.
Aren't they sounding a lot like Rome during the days of Claudius and Caligula and all this? I mean, guys, dang, we're disgusting.
Yeah, we've got our Aquila, the American Eagle. We've got our Senate. We call ourselves a republic. Yeah, I mean, we're the de facto reserve currency of the world. We control all trade. We are Rome.
Yeah, we really are.
Yeah, we really are.
And we're acting the part on Capitol in Washington. I mean, they really, really are out in the open. To me, I mean, it's really like reading books on Caligula and Tiberius and all that. These are just scumbag. I mean, scumbag.
Yeah, the only difference right now and all of this is that with the riots that followed the deaths in Minnesota, people have forgotten all about a coronavirus.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I noticed that when they're all lined up protesting, they're side by side and nobody's wearing masks.
Correct. Everybody seems to have forgotten the coronavirus. And if everybody been out protesting and forgetting about the coronavirus, and it hasn't done anything, then it tells you that we were idiots to shut down the economy. I mean, today there's a report out by the Fed that says that the ill effects on the economy are irreversible. Oh, that's true.
Yeah. That's
well,
true.
America will never be what it was post-coronavirus. The world will never be what it was post-coronavirus. Not because the coronavirus was so bad, but because our response to it was so stupid.
Handling of it.
Yes. Deprivation of liberty and livelihood were so egregious that there is no way to ever recover from it. The damage is so great that it'll just be all downhill from here. But we do know how the world all comes together in a national, worldwide tyrannical manner. That's where we are. I did want to announce that we have finally completed the 5 volumes of Observations for a Time. There's some tweaking to do. There's a couple of chapters still to be edited, but I've completely finished my rewrite. I've entered every edit that has been sent to me. Mike, J.K., Jackie, Molly have been absolutely spectacular. This is such an unbelievable dedication on their part to edit these books. We're dealing with, between Coming Home and Observations, 7 volumes and 5,000 pages, all rewritten, all new material. And it's just been a marvelous accomplishment. They are so much better, so much new material in all of them. They're complete rewrites from beginning to end. And now I'm on Yada Yahweh. I started last night late, rewriting the prologue to Yada Yahweh, and systematically we'll go through that and get it shaped up. And so, very
congratulations to all of you. I mean, this is just, I've been watching it and hearing about it, and it's just amazing. I mean, the world should say thank you. Well,
yeah, I tell you what, when you have to send out 7 exceedingly long emails, each with 16 or 17 attachments, 18, 19 attachments, to send out just the new material, you've got a lot of new material.
Yes, sir.
It's 5,000 pages, 7 volumes, each volume averaging about 14 chapters. It's a lot of new material, and if you've read it before, I'll tell you there's enough new material in it that's worth a read all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, where we left off was we had begun the 22nd Mizmor. The 22nd Mizmor is really the best eyewitness account of what happened on Pesach, Matzah and Bakodim in year 4000 Yah. Now, we have come to appreciate the fact that the Christian New Testament is largely counterproductive. Most of it is pure evil. The 14 books penned by Paul were inspired by none other than Satan. Acts would fall under the same purview, and certainly Luke falls under that, and most of Matthew. There was no disciple Matthew. Matthew is a fraud. It's a fraud at the same level of Enoch. Was not written by one of Yosha's disciples, and was written by a devotee of Paul who was demon possessed. And of course, Luke was Paul's physician and maybe even his exorcist, failed exorcist. I don't know if he was as bad a physician as he was an exorcist. And when you put it all together, Paul's influence is over 2/3 of the Christian New Testament, and it's an absolute waste of material. It's just wholly evil and counterproductive. So if you want to know what happened and the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, you want to know the story of the Pesach AL, you have to read Mizmor 22.
I literally was having this exact discussion with my mother-in-law earlier today.
Yeah.
Wow. I was telling her about how untrustworthy the Greek texts were and why, and she's like, "Well, how do you know what happened then?" I'm like, "I go to the source. I read the Torah. Psalm 22 tells you everything about it in much more detail than anything in the Greek text ever did."
Right. Right. And if you want to understand all the things that were happening and why they were happening, read Yashayah 53. Dode and Yashayah go hand in glove. And so reading both of them, you have this marvelous presentation of what happened and why it happened. And so, it shouldn't be a surprise because Yahweh has 3 Zeroah. And to understand who the Zeroah are, what Zeroah means, and how it applies to these 3 men, really provides the proper perspective of understanding God's message to humanity. And the three Zeroah are the leading ram, which is Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the protective shepherd, which is Dod, and the Zeroah sacrificial lamb, which is Yosha. And the three of them provide the Torah, teaching, the covenant relationship, and the Pesach El, the Passover lamb, that enables the benefits of the covenant. They are the three. You know, I was Mike, who is one of the editors, and Mike. I talked about Mike last week and his analysis of the proper pronunciation of the Nesh, which is the sign that Yahweh is lifting up that we're contributing to writing. He made a comment, something I've known for a long time. I just was looking for the right place to insert it. And it happened to be in a discussion of Elijah. And he says, are you aware, and you should probably incorporate this in a chapter, which I've subsequently done in observations, that in a Jewish Passover Seder, do you know that in virtually every Jewish Passover Seder, there is a table setting, a plate, and an empty chair, as well as an open door and a glass of wine, all poured and presented for guess who? Passover Seder. Who is a place set for, a glass of wine set for? Who is invited, and who is the door opened for? And a rabbinical Passover Seder.
I can't imagine it's Yahusha.
Nope, it's not Yahusha. He just happens to be the Pesach El.
No, it's Elijah.
He is the one opening the door. It is Elijah. That is Elijah.
I've heard that one before. It took me a second to remember. But yeah,
it is Elijah. And Elia is his real name. And talk about stupid. I don't know if it's willful or just total ignorance. What was Elijah particularly good at? Because Elijah, the same personality, same aptitude. So when he returns, what is it that is this guy is really good at? When he returns to form, what is he going to do? Yeah. What did he do?
Oh, pick on him.
He destroyed the religious nature of Israel and their propensity to be religious. Elia is not a redeemer. Elia is not a savior. Elia is a guy that exposes and condemns and does so with an exceedingly sarcastic and sharp wit. And so for you to set a place setting for Elia and say that you're showing your faith in that Israel will be redeemed. Well, I'm here to tell you, when Elia returns, the first thing he's going to do is toast the religious garb of all religious Jews. His words will literally kill religious Jews. That's who he's coming back to condemn. That's all he did in life. He condemned religion as it affected Israel. Why in the hell would you set a Passover dinner? Is there any correlation of any kind between Elijah, and Passover?
No.
Now, does Judaism just render somebody stupid? Because there obviously was a Passover lamb. There was somebody whose name is Yahweh Saves that served as the Pesach lamb on Pesach in year 4000 Yah, and yet you don't invite him to your Seder, do you, Jews? Yosha is the Pesach El. He is the only viable candidate for the Pesach El. You even served him up as the Pesach El. And you don't invite him? Now, what is the main ingredient for the Passover meal?
Lamb.
What is it that if you're, and Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Jew, what is the one thing that is precluded, actually prohibited from being served during Pesach?
Probably lamb.
Lamb. Lamb. If you're an Orthodox Jew or an Orthodox Jew, you are prohibited from eating lamb on Pesach. Now, if
I
you're
did not actually know that
Jew,
one. That's new.
Yeah, I didn't either. I had no idea.
Yep. Oh, yeah, talking about belligerent, stupid, stiff-necked, and moronic. Now, if you're a Reformed Jew, you'll get a piece of lamb. But all you're going to get is a lamb bone. No meat on it. You can't eat it.
I knew
you
that.
Get a bone.
You
get a bone.
I've heard that. I've heard of that.
That's why on the Pesach Seder, they always cook a brisket so that people don't go home starving. You get a bone. I'm laughing at this because it just shows how belligerent
how far
Jews are toward Yahweh and their
I'm literally aghast. I did not know this.
Yeah, they serve a bone. And what they say is that the reason that there is no amount of lamb that is edible on Pesach, this is even for the Reformed. So if you're Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox, you get no lamb. And if you're Reformed, you get a damn bone. And they say that the reason that the bone doesn't provide any nourishment, there's nothing there, is to pay homage to and respect to the temple sacrifices of old.
Isn't the bone supposed to be burnt up?
It's a Passover
all the
lamb.
non-edible stuff was burned.
It's a Passover lamb. That's the menu. Why would the one thing you won't offer is the Passover lamb? Are you idiots? How can you claim to be Torah observant when you deny the essence of the Torah?
Well, what did they think was happening when Moshe in Egypt?
Yeah. Remember, I mentioned Zerah, didn't I?
Yes,
20 years ago when I first came across Zerah, and every lexicon defines Zerah as arm. And yet I looked at the Torah because it was an unusual word, and it's based on Zara, which means seed. So the seed which is sown, and the offspring, posterity of the seed, that which grows from the seed, is the basis of the word. And every time I looked it up in the Torah, every time it was used in the Torah, and I understand that the Torah also permeates the prophets and the Mizmor, but in the Torah, the 5 books associated with Moses, every time it's used with the sacrificial lamb. But I couldn't find a single lexicon that would validate that. But I translated sacrificial lamb. At least I did, all the way to the point that it was used in conjunction with dode, and I said, oh boy. It obviously means more than sacrificial lamb, and I found out that it also means protective shepherd. And then I learned that Moshe is also called a Zerah, and he is the leading ram. All of whom sowed the seed from which we can grow. So these rabbis, who don't have a single hint anywhere in their translations, nor any hint in any Hebrew dictionary that Zerah means anything but arm, actually call that lamb bone a Zerah. They know that the Zerah represents the Passover lamb. They call it a Zerah. And don't tell the people what it means. Isn't it stunning how belligerently stubborn and obnoxious rabbis have become? How aggressive they are against Yahweh, and how they will charge people for their religious work when they are in fact precluding those that they are charging from knowing God, blocking the door to heaven. Yep, it is just astonishing. So when people tell you, well, you study Passover, celebrate Passover. I went to a Seder one time so I know what you're talking about. I said, no, if you've gone to a Seder, you know nothing what I'm talking about. That's the opposite of what it means to observe Passover. That's everything possibly wrong.
when me and Patty were first dating, she told me that, and this was around the same time I was learning all this stuff through Yada Yahweh and everything. She told me, oh, yeah, my family did Passover a few times as kids. I'm like, well, we can do it. I'm like, all right, well, let's try. And literally, they had found a book that took the Passover Seder meal and just Christianized everything in it.
Wow.
And it was the most awkward, uncomfortable dinner I've ever had in my life. I could not wait to get out of there. And I told her I was never going to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how no one gets it. You know, I was one of the profound moments of my life was that I've had lots of them, and when you know, come to find out that while we're not prophets, but the prophets spoke of us. I was trying to figure out Zeroah of all things, and I was tracing down every use of Zeroah, and the two most profound uses of Zeroah. One is the Sermon on the Mount, not Yosha's, but Solomon's. So he's dedicating the Yahweh's temple, the home, for the first time, and he uses Zeroah. And in that he's introducing Yisrael to the
Torah.
The Nakri, the observant Torah.
The Nakri.
Yeah. One named Yada. But in Yashayah, which goes hand in hand with everything that Dode had to say, and the single most important presentation relative to the work of the Passover lamb, it's in Yashayah 53. And so I'm trying to figure out all the various ways that Zeroah can be rendered. And Yashayah 53, which the second point of Yashayah 53 is, there is absolutely nothing about the Passover lamb that would cause anyone to respect the lamb or to idolize the lamb or to see anything special about the lamb. And it's telling Christians, you morons, stop worshiping the Passover lamb. But right before that, it introduces it by saying, who is it that's finally come to understand who the Zeroah actually are? Because until you understand who the three Zeroah are, you got no clue as to what Yosha's doing there. Because you have to understand how Zeroah permeates Moshe's role as a shepherd that led the people, Mitzrayim, human, religious, and political oppression, to the promised land. You have to understand how Dode became the living embodiment of the covenant and the ultimate shepherd that was empowered to protect Yahweh's flock, such that the sacrificial lamb, the third Zeroah, Yosha, could open heaven's door. And then when you understand that perspective, then you're in a position to understand Yashayah 53 and not sit there and think that it's presenting the God-man, Jesus Christ, because it isn't. Yashayah 53, which begins with this concept of who is it that has finally come to understand who the Zeroah is the parallel to Mizmor 22. Now, Mizmor 22 begins with a statement that in and of itself ought to have been a death knell for the Christian religion. And it's so sad because, well, the Christian religion is the most anti-Semitic cult of all time. It's based on replacement theology. It's based on taking everything for the Jews and claiming them on behalf of Gentiles. It would not have ever come to exist if Jews had come to recognize Yosha, not as the Messiah because he wasn't the Messiah, not as the Son of God because he wasn't the Son of God, Passover lamb. That's all they had to do. And He said as much when he quoted Dode. And the very statement that he quotes is the reason I stopped being a Christian. This line is the reason I stopped being a Christian. If Yosha said, my God, why have you forsaken me? He can't be God.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. God, therefore, did not die for your sins because God wasn't there and it was just a man hanging on that upright pole. Yosha's last words on the upright pole of Pesach were, my God, why have you forsaken me? And that is how the 22nd Mizmor begins. So who was Yosha quoting?
Dode.
Yeah, Dode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Yosha is quoting Dode, whose words were inspired?
Dode.
Dode's, right?
If
Yosha is quoting Dode, who's the prophet?
Dode.
And if Yosha is saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Can he be God?
No, he can't be forsaken. He can't forsake himself.
No. Who did Dode say is God? Did he say Yosha is God?
No. Yahweh's God.
Did Dode ever write Yosha's name?
Never.
Did any prophet write Yosha's name?
No, sir, not a one.
Not a one. But Yosha quoted Dode. And Dode says that Yahowah is God. And Yahowah just happened to say that Dode is the Messiah.
And the Messiah.
He never once said that Yosha is the Messiah.
That's true.
And Yahowah says that Dode is my son. He is not only my son, he is my firstborn. Does Yahowah ever say that Yosha is his son, much less his firstborn? No.
Wow.
Did Yosha ever claim to be the Messiah?
No, absolutely.
Did Dode claim to be the Messiah? Yes.
Absolutely not.
Yosha?
Yes.
No. Did Yosha ever claim to be the Son of God?
Never.
Never. He called himself the Son of Man.
Exactly.
But Yahowah claims that Dode was the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
We just got because of Christianity and because rabbinical Jews weren't paying attention and the whole Pesach Seder explains their arrogance and their ineptitude. Neither the chosen people nor the Gentile pretenders have a clue as to who Dode is and who Yosha is. So it's as if God took all the time to reveal this and they can't process it. I mean, Christians will still say, Jesus died for your sins. No, he didn't. Do you accept Jesus as the Son of God? No. They pray to Jesus as God.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not. My God, why have you at this moment actually forsaken me? The word he spoke is azab. Have you ever looked at azab to see what it means?
Scary.
Yeah. Azab doesn't say, why have you, my God, why have you made me God Jr.?
No.
No, that's not what it says. Why have you abandoned me, left me, forsake me, damned me, separated from me? God likely, we don't know this for certain, but it's likely, that Yahowah had his set-apart spirit come upon Yosha sometime 3 years before his sacrifice as the Pesach lambs. Likely.
Let me ask you something about that. What is? Do we know that from where? Just from the New Testament? Could he have not have this set apart spirit could have not come upon him in birth?
Oh, there's no chance it happened at birth.
Okay.
None. No.
No. Okay.
No. He lived. In fact, if it had happened at birth, it
it's
would.
Pretty ordinary life. I realize. But...
Yeah, it negates the whole purpose. He lived an ordinary life.
Yeah. Okay.
He just did. He lived an ordinary life. And if he didn't live an ordinary life, then Yahshua 53 is for naught.
I got you. Makes
yeah,
sense.
Well,
okay.
Yahshua 53 makes it. In fact, Yahshua makes it really clear. He was born the old-fashioned way. There's nothing about him that was is special in any way. Lived a normal life. The Spirit of Yahweh came upon him at 30. The Spirit of Yahweh came upon Dode at 8 and never left him. And we're told it came upon him in a very powerful way and never left him. So, we're not told when set-apart Spirit came upon the Passover lamb, but it obviously did. Otherwise, the Passover lamb would not have said, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
You leave me? Of course.
That naturally implies is too soft a term. Passover, that Yahshua's spirit was once connected with him, but was no longer. Now, why would Yahweh have to remove his spirit from the Pesach lamb at the precipice of the lamb's sacrifice?
2 reasons.
Yeah.
He can't be next to all that sin. You can't be in my presence with all that sin. Number 2, he can't go with him in Sheol. He can't separate himself from himself.
And he couldn't have died if the spirit was still there.
And plus, he can't
right.
die.
Yeah. Well, if you are infused with the spirit, you're immortal. Whether it's a satanic spirit or Yahweh spirit, you're immortal.
Yeah,
and so an immortal being can't die. So the Spirit of Yahweh had to leave him, otherwise the Passover lamb can't die. So when this is written as a question, my God, why have you forsaken me? Did Yosha know why God was forsaking him?
Of course he did. He wrote that for you and me and everybody
so that's
else.
not a question, is it? He is citing the 22nd Mizmor so that anyone with half a brain can go to the 22nd Mizmor and come to understand what's happening here. So he's directing us to the eyewitness account of what is occurring. Azab Ani, have you, for a finite time, totally abandoned and literally relinquished me. So it's written in the call, literal and actual, perfect, which is a completed action for a limited time. Yosha knew why. This question was rendered for our benefit. To know the answer is to Yada know the mindset of Yahweh and the purpose of Yosha.
You want to say interesting, at least to me,
sure.
Genesis 2:24 is the first Azab. And it said, man shall leave his father.
Oh, now that's pretty cool. That's a great insight. Man shall leave his father is the first Azab in the Torah.
24.
And here's an Azab, as with the word that he spoke. My God, why have you Azab? So he had left the father. So the next statement is that Dode has recorded, far away from my liberation and deliverance are the words of my anguished roar. This is one of those times where we benefit from knowing that the verb yasha primarily means to deliver, to liberate, far more than it does to save. You're being saved from harm's way, but it's being provided liberty and deliverance. So as the Pesach El, his soul was going to Matzah, which is the place of eternal incarceration. And so he was at that moment further from his deliverance, further from freedom than he could possibly ever be.
Hmm.
And so that's what he was saying here. Far, remote and distant in time, away from my liberation and deliverance, are the words of my anguished roar. Shaga, roaring moan of a lion, a guttural roar. And what's interesting here is that what tribe was Yosha?
He was Yehuda. The lion. The lion.
Yeah, and when the symbol of Yehuda is the lion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, the Yehuda means beloved of Yah. And so Yosha is saying, I am as far away from my freedom and deliverance as I am from being right now the beloved of Yah. This guttural moan of the lion. I am no longer the beloved of Yah. I'm anguished as a result. Then, my God, I continually call out and recite by day, but you do not answer, and by night there is no relief for me, no expectation of rest or silence. So I would ask you, you would think that Yosha would have had a pretty decent access to Yahweh if he, of all people, was calling out to Yahweh, let's use the Christian term, in prayer. You'd think that Yahweh would answer his prayer, wouldn't you?
And on the surface, yeah.
Yeah. And what does he say? My God, I call out to you. I summon you by day, and you do not answer. So if God's not going to answer this request of Yosha, what do you think the chances are, little Miss Muffin of religious fame, that God's going to answer your prayer?
Well, she's in the same place. She was Satan. So why would
Zero. Yeah, zero. God's not in the business of answering prayer. Yosha is making this really clear. God's not in the business of answering prayers. He's not in the business of listening to prayers. And matter of fact, it is a disgusting, reprehensible thing to do. To be yabbering
unless what you're
to God.
asking for is something he's already promised. Don't count on getting.
That's an agreement.
Right.
That's not an ask.
But if you're asking for something he's ever already promised, you're embarrassing yourself and you're showing no respect for him by asking him for something he's already promised to do.
That means you didn't read it.
Yeah. So why, once upon a time I might have said, "Hey God, I don't understand this. Could you help explain it to me?" I don't ever say that anymore.
No,
what a stupid thing for me to say.
Lot,
yeah, what a stupid thing for me to say. And the whole purpose is to help us understand it. Why would I ask God to do what he's promised to do?
Yeah.
And I will do when I come across something I'm having trouble translating or understanding. I will, verbally, I'm in a room by myself, so I don't care if I look crazy. Sit here and talk it out like I'm talking to him, just because it helps
I will too.
My process.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I will too.
Yeah,
I will too.
But what are you trying to say here? I'm a little confused.
You're saying, you're not saying this as a okay, God, if I ask you really nicely, maybe that you'll if you're not too busy, you'll give me an answer. No, that's not why you're saying it. You're engaged in a conversation. You're listening to him. You say, I'm not sure I get this. Now, what does this mean?
I'm trying to understand his words.
Right. Now,
I do kind of have a habit of, whenever I sit down to translate, the first thing I do is like, all right, help me out here. Let's do this.
Yes. So let's say that you tell your daughter 100 evenings that if she eats her dinner, that she can have dessert. And you explain to her why it's in her best interest to do that, why this is the right thing to do. And you've done this 100 times. And your daughter has a tendency to blow you off. And she won't even listen to you, She'll go, na, 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 la, 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 la. And if she's done that 100 times, and then she comes to you and says, "Hey, Dad, can I have dessert?" and she hasn't eaten her dinner, what's your response going to be?
Well, actually, I think this is why it's important for us to have children, because now we can relate to Yah, because I've had my daughter do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're going, no.
No, it's a sign of disrespect. And so if Yahweh has told you something 100 times and you haven't bothered to listen to him, and then you expect him to listen to you, what is wrong with somebody?
It's one thing for a 3-year-old to do that. It's another for a 30-year-old to do that.
Right. As a 30-year-old, to be asking Yahweh for things and to be talking to him when you're not willing to listen to him and you don't even like what he has to say, it's very, very disrespectful. But anyway, this begins by saying, "My God, I continually call out to you. I read, I recite, I invite, I summon you. But you do not answer." Anna. Now, what's interesting here is that, well, that's what those words mean, and that's telling to themselves. There is another meaning of kara and Anna that is exceedingly important at this moment. Kara is the basis of Mikra. The first of the 7 Moed Mikra is Pesach. Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, Shabbat. Those are the first 4. And so he is at this moment observing as the Pesach El, the Mikra of Pesach. And the basis of Pesach, the basis of the Mikra, is this verb kara. And so he's announcing, I am in the midst of kara. And then the next verb is Anna. And Anna has 2 meanings. Its primary meaning is answer. It was negated here. So you do not answer. You do not reply. And so it's used in the context of the Mikra, of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, of these invitations to meet with God. And God asks us to respond, to RSVP, to reply and answer his invitation. But humankind has not done so. And so by Lo Anna, we're being told that there is this invitation, kara, and that mankind is not responding or answering. But there's a secondary meaning of Anna. Its primary meaning is to answer and respond. And if we do, then our souls will not be Anna, afflicted. Yosha's soul was going to be afflicted, Anna, so that those of us who Anna respond to Yahweh's kara invitation will not be afflicted. So what you have here is this juxtaposition of the 2 verbs that explain everything we need to know about Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, and Shabbat. If we answer Yahweh's invitations to be called out and meet with him, we will not be afflicted. And Yahweh, through Yosha, afflicted his soul on behalf of those who answer these invitations. So this is one of those examples, and there's a lot of them, where if you take the time to look at the words, you can see that Yahweh is going way beyond the simple interpretation and translation of the words and wants us to think about it. It's as profound as Kirk finding out that the first time azab was used, when it says that we should azab, leave our fathers and mothers and become one with our new family. So my God, Elohim, I continually call out and recite kara. I actually invite and summon, but you do not, Anna, answer me. And that's during the day. And by night, there is no relief for me, my expectation of rest or silence. What happened after the sun set on Pesach?
He died and his soul went into Sheol.
That is correct. He went into Sheol to unleaven our souls.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
To remove religious and political. It's just the very nature of Mitzrayim when the Exodus took the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim, the crucibles of human religious and political oppression. It is that which is being removed from us during Matzah. And so he is saying, by night, during the darkness of that night, as my soul would go into the black hole, the ultimate darkness, the ultimate place where there is an absence of light, there is no relief for me, no expectation of rest or silence. He's there to do a job. He's the Pesach Gael, and he is the justification, the ransom, the sacrifice for our sin, our religious and political sin. And so he has made that abundantly clear through these words. Then he says, you are set apart, living to establish the renown and reputation of Yisrael. 22:3. Now, if there was a thing called replacement theology, which is the basis of Christianity, thanks to Paul, of transferring everything from Yisrael to Goyim, everything from Dode to this mythical creature known as Jesus Christ. That being the case, why would Yahowah be the set-apart one, living to establish the renown and reputation of Israel? I mean, at this moment, Christianity is getting its birth at its own crazy mythology, and yet Yosha is saying, you are the set-apart one, living to establish the renown and reputation of Israel. When the first Exodus came and we celebrated the first Pesach and Matzah, who was it that was removed from Mitzrayim? Goyim?
Israel. No.
Israel. The children of Israel. And now, here in the observation and fulfillment of Pesach and Matzah, who is it that Yahowah, through Yosha, is making the sacrifice on behalf of? Once again.
Israel. Again, Israel. Yes.
Israel.
Wow. Those who strive with El.
So at the very moment that Christians think their religion was born, Yosha is saying that Yahowah, you are the living God who is here to enhance the name and reputation and the renown of Israel. Devastating. If you're rational and informed, you cannot be a Christian. But how can you be a religious Jew? They
can't do that either.
They don't even acknowledge that the Pesach El was here. They don't acknowledge that any of this was fulfilled. That's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that leads to Akiba.
Yep.
Well, if they acknowledge it, then there's no Akiba. There's no diaspora.
And you, our fathers, relied. They trusted, and you consistently rescued them. Yeah, he rescued them from Mitzrayim, didn't he?
Yes.
During when they came into the promised land, and there were those terrible people that tried to wipe them out, and the Amalekites were there. There was the communities around Jericho. There were the Philistines, there were the Hittites, the Amalekites, you name it. They were all there. What did Yahweh do? Constantly protected them from their enemies. So you, our fathers, relied. They trusted. They relied. And you consistently rescued them. So if you want to be rescued by Yahweh, what is the verb that we ought to pay attention to if it is our goal to be rescued by Yahweh?
The talk.
Yeah.
The talk.
To trust and rely. No faith required.
No faith required.
Trust
exactly.
and rely. Yeah. Trust and rely. That's the path to God's home. To you, they cried out for help, and they were delivered. In you, they trusted and relied, and they were not disappointed or disapproved. Who is you here? This is Yosha. This is the person that Christians renamed as Jesus Christ, and he is saying the people relied not on me as their Savior; they relied on you, and you performed, Yahweh. So if Yosha is acknowledging that Yahweh is the Savior of the people of Israel, what in the hell are we doing with 3 billion people calling Jesus the Savior when he says that's nonsense? I'm not the Savior. Yahweh is. I mean, Christians, you lug this stuff around in your Bibles based on Babel. Why can't you read it? Now, if you're rabbinical Jew, do you know what if you look up salvation in Judaism, you know what you'll find?
No, sir.
What do you think you'll find? Salvation in Judaism. Judaism 101, for example. Salvation in Judaism. What do you think you'll find? JK, have you ever done it? Or JB, have you ever done it?
No.
You know what rabbinical Jews teach? That Jews are not in need of a Savior. There's nothing to save them from. They do not need a Savior.
I've heard you say that. Or somebody
and so there's no such thing as salvation in rabbinic Judaism.
You're just born into it.
Yeah, they're better than God.
Wow.
And yet, what is Yosha saying? Isakael. He's reminding Yehudim that their forefathers called out to Yahweh, and he was the one that saved them. You want salvation? You need to know who to ask, who to trust, who is never going to disappoint you if you rely on him, and it's Yahweh. Yosha was talking not to himself. He didn't say, hey, I am the one whom the people called out to, and I delivered them. He's not saying that, is he?
No.
He's saying Yahweh is the one that the people relied upon, and that Yahweh never disappointed them.
Does the Hezekiah story just go over their heads?
Yeah, I guess so. Or the whole Dode experience, or everything Yosha wrote. Okay. Yosha next says, I am but a crimson grub, and not extant or present as a person, rebuked and reproached by man, and disrespected and despised by the family. And that's the problem. You've got Christians who look at Yosha by a different name, a Greek name, Jesus, by a Greek title, Christ, completely remove him from his Yahud roots and his Hebrew background. And they call him the Son of God, which he wasn't. They call him the King of Kings, which he wasn't. They call him the Messiah, which he wasn't. And the one thing they never call him the Pesach al, the Passover lamb, he actually was. Yeah. No one respects him. No one has a clue as to what he represents. And then you deal with the Jews, and the last thing they want is a piece of lamb is to be getting in their way of the religious celebration of Passover. They've got no clue what the lamb represents, much less Yosha being the lamb. But I am but a crimson grub. Now, who was it that actually killed the Passover lamb?
Romans.
Yeah, the Romans. Of course, the Roman Catholic Church would tell you that Jews killed it.
Jews did.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Jews.
Because the Christian New Testament
they wouldn't be accused of
is
it.
crap.
Yeah.
It's just absolute crap. The Christian New Testament was written by Romans to condemn Jews and to venerate Romans. And it's a piece of crap. It's absolute shit. Most anti-Semitic book in human history. It's worse than the Quran. It's worse than Mein Kampf. It is rubbish. And so, because of the rubbish that is in the Christian New Testament and its anti-Semitic nature, where there Jesus Christ turns on his own people and says, you're not worthy of salvation, and presents them as the killers of God. It's absolute stupidity, because it was the Romans who killed the Passover lamb. Pure and simple. It was Rome. And so what he's saying here now is, I'm a crimson grub. You ever look up the nature of this crimson grub? Coccus elixis? Yeah. It's the telling that the Roman legions, the very soldiers beating Yosha to a pulp, were known the world over for their bloody red togas and banners. Do you ever see a Roman legionnaire in any color other than red?
No.
What color was their banner?
It's also red.
Red.
And with
This
a
color
eagle
was
on top.
designed to invoke fear in the hearts that those they were subjugating. Guess what it's derived from?
This grub, of course.
This crimson grub.
You did your homework. You absolutely did your homework.
It is the same crimson grub.
Wow.
For 1,000 years thereafter, the dye from this particular crimson grub was valued above precious metals by nobility and clerics as a symbol of power and authority. In other words, it's the religious and political and military and Roman power and authority that has rendered the Pesach al nothing more than the grub that they themselves prize so much. Also telling, this little bugger cannot produce offspring without dying.
Isn't that interesting?
That's kind of like the Pesach al, right?
So cool.
This little bugger cannot produce offspring without dying. It voluntarily attaches itself to a tree, the upright pole, the tree of lives, in order to protect its young, surrendering its freedom to keep its offspring safe.
Isn't that great?
Yep.
That
like the
so
Pesach al, the Passover lamb, the successive generation is nourished by this grub's body. Just like Pesach, we're nourished by the lamb, unless you're Jewish and you're celebrating the Seder and there's no lamb to eat, by the body, freely venturing out to explore this world. Amazingly, this crimson grub encapsulates the nature of the Passover sacrifice and its purpose, while at the same time identifying those who were abusing the lamb. The first letter of Torah is even illustrative of the timber the Romans used to crucify their victims.
Tall. Wow.
Yep, God used 3 different words for man in this particular sentence also, which is interesting. After accurately describing the condition and the appearance of his flogged body, he said he was no longer present as a person. Yeesh. is the term Yahweh used to describe his form when he visited with Abraham and later with Jacob, and who became Israel. Yahweh revealed that Yosha was being accused by Adam, symbolic of the first man created in God's image. This would also suggest that he was assuming every sin all the way back to Adam, and thus serving as a metaphor for taking on the sin of all mankind. But more than this, Adam was unique because of his nasama, and thus the ability to think. And has caused so many to disregard the Lamb's purpose because they just don't think. Then the last word for man was Am, which means people. A millennia before it actually occurred, Yahweh told us, and that's when this prophecy was revealed, 1,000 years before Pesach. This psalm is recorded in the Dead Sea collection, and so we have a rendered, printed version of it over 200 years before it actually occurred. Yahweh told us that his offer of redemption would be disrespected by some and rejected by others, seen as worthless by members of his own family, and that's exactly what occurred. Yehudim have absolutely no respect for Yosha fulfilling the role of the Pesach lamb. None. They don't even serve lamb at Passover. They never mention his name. It's not Yosha that is invited and appreciated. It's Hilya. The chosen people have put themselves in this position because they have rejected the Pesach Gael. They've also rejected their Messiah, who is not the Pesach Gael, but in fact Dov. Smartest people in the world, and they have made some of the dumbest decisions in all of human history. He then says, all of those who see me, they deride and mock me. They shoot off their mouths while they shake their heads. And by the way, that's still what's happening. You know, you listen to a Christian pastor and they cite something from Paul or even something rendered from the Greek text written by Romans that's attributed to Yosha, and they're still flapping their lips and mocking God. They don't know Yosha's name. They don't know Yosha's relationship with Yahweh. They don't understand Yosha's role as the Pesach Gael. They have no understanding of the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and so none of this matters to them. None of this can benefit them in any way. And for God's sake, they have the Passover lamb coming back to life. The dumbest thing in the world. Have they ever read anything about what happened on the Exodus of how Passover was first presented? You know,
on the third day, the corpse of the lamb they ate caught up with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
They at that point were almost all the way to Arabia. But no, not to worry. On the third day, that Passover lamb that they had cooked and eaten and incinerated that night, it was just trotting along. It passed by and laughed at the Egyptians, was resurrected before the Israelites. No, the Passover lamb doesn't come back to life. One and done, baby. One and done.
It served its purpose.
Yeah.
There was no need for it to come back. It had nothing else to do.
Yeah, it did what it was supposed to do. It nourished the people. It opened the door to life and to Yahweh's home. Those who see me, they deride and mock me. There is no group of people on the planet that deride and mock Yosha as the Pesach Gael more than the people who have created a religion to worship Jesus Christ. They are mocking Yosha because they give him no credit for his purpose, which was to fulfill Pesach and Matzah, and they afford him every title that he did not have. mocking him. They shoot off their mouths while they shake their heads. Then this says, and we're now in Mizmor Psalm 22:8. You have chosen to trust in Yahweh, such that he will enable you to escape and survive. Let's see if he wants to rescue him. Let him choose to deliver and save him. Surely he desires to be with him. So what Dode is doing here is he's now sharing with us what those mockers, those that are shaking their heads and mocking Yosha as the Pesach El, as the Passover lamb, he's sharing what they're saying. And he's saying, you have chosen to trust in Yahweh, which, by the way, means that Yosha told everyone who was listening that I trust in Yahweh. That's interesting because there isn't a single Christian Bible that mentions Yahweh's name. The Roman Catholic Church won't even allow anyone to say Yahweh's name. And what did Yosha say? I've chosen to trust in Yahweh. That's what they're repeating here. It says, you have chosen to trust in Yahweh. He will enable you to escape and survive.
Yeah.
Obviously, he trusted and relied on Yahweh and told everybody that he was doing so. So if you want to follow Yosha's example, you ought to trust and rely on Yahweh. Let's see if he wants to rescue him. No. Idiot. Yahweh does not rescue the Pesach El. He rescues the children of Israel by the sacrifice of the Pesach El. Did you ever read the Exodus story? The Exodus story is the Pesach El, the Passover lamb, is consumed by those whom Yahweh passes over for death. That's what these words mean. Let him choose to deliver and save him. Yahweh will choose to deliver and save all who rely on Yahweh fulfilling his promises, particularly here on Pesach Batzad Bakurim. Surely he desires to be with him. Of course Yahweh does. But they had no clue, because Yahweh had just abandoned him so that his body could die as the Pesach El, and his soul could go to Matzah, the place of separation, and pay the penalty in our stead. Indeed, you allowed me to gush forth in normal childbirth from the womb, causing me to rely upon my mother's breasts. Yosha's give us a little retrospective here. He was not born as God. His childbirth was normal. Allowed me to gush forth in normal childbirth. This is like the breaking of the water. Normal childbirth. That's what happens when a child is born. Helped me to gush forth in normal childbirth. Brought me out through the normal pushing and drawing, to surge, to push, to burst forth, and part of customary childbirth. He was born as a normal boy. From the womb, causing me to rely upon my mother's breast. He had to be born as a normal individual. The Passover lamb is not God. The Passover lamb is born in a normal way. On your account, I was cast out to the point of origin as an act of compassion and love. From the womb of my mother, you are my God. Well, from the moment any of us are born, there's only one God. So for all of us, Yahweh is our God whether or not we acknowledge him or not.
Regardless, surely.
That's just the way it is. He is our God. That doesn't mean that we're going to acknowledge him as such, but he's the only God. And so this is on your account. The Pesach El makes this sacrifice, not just for us, but also for Yahweh. Because unless Yahweh can make us immortal and then have the soul fulfill matzah and perfect us, he can't adopt us. And if he can't adopt us, he does not get the enjoyment of raising children and being part of a family. And so he is doing this for himself. And we ought to be thrilled that God benefits from making these sacrifices on our behalf.
Of course.
Just like we as parents benefit when we make sacrifices for our children, even if they don't accept them. The very fact we have done so makes it the right thing to do. So on your account, I was cast out of the point of origin as an act of compassion and love. Now, well, this is still talking about he was born the natural way. In this particular case, since he would serve as the Passover lamb, God says that he was born on that account. But it also talks about the fact that at this point, Yosha's soul is going to be cast out in the place of separation, Sheol. And that is happening for our benefit, just as it's happening for Yahweh's benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm 22:10. We move on to the next statement, which says, "Do not distance yourself from me, because the adversary's anguish is imminent. And yet, indeed, no one can help."
It's very sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very sad, isn't it? But the saddest part of this isn't actually that the soul that would suffer this anguish was Yahweh's.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind that, well, I think that it is in the 99.9% likelihood that Yosha's soul was Yahweh's soul. That Yahweh's soul is not to Yahweh as our soul is to us.
No,
in our case, our soul is our essence. It is the reservoir of our personality, of our memory,
Central.
of our lives, of our proclivities, of our attributes. Our soul is all we are. Our physical bodies, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Our soul is all that will transcend this life, and it's our character. It's our very persona. With Yahweh, Yahweh is not diminished in persona and character in life by the absence of his soul. If our soul is absent from the body, we are deprived of life, unless that soul is with Yahweh in the seventh dimension. And so Yahweh has a soul as a probe, as an implement, it's just as a tool that he could use.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. Another tool that he can use to relate and get closer to us.
But is it fair to say that probe, though, that's how he felt the pain?
Yeah, exactly.
He got it. I mean, he felt exactly what was there. He understood what was going on in a personal way.
While it would reflect Yahweh's character, while it would reflect Yahweh's persona, while it would reflect Yahweh's attitude and approach and serves as an extension of Yahweh, the soul to Yahweh is infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity less vital to Yahweh than our souls are to us.
Yeah, I get that, yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind. So this says, "Do not distance yourself from me, because the adversary's anguish is imminent, and indeed no one can help." The soul of Yahweh, now that the body of Yosha has fulfilled Pesach, is going to fulfill matzah. and that God is going to pay the price with the torment and Sheol on Matzah so that he can redeem us. He is paying our penalty. That he's saying these words, it's imminent, and he is going to face the adversary. Now, what's interesting here, too, is the term for adversary's anguish, it's Shara. Shar is the word that is used frequently to describe the time of Jacob's troubles, the time of Yisrael's anguish, where Yisrael is thinned at the waist and made vulnerable and is tormented. This is the feminine version of that. And so this is saying, listen, the adversary wants to torment Yisrael. And that time of torment was imminent, and there was no one that could help. He was going to the place of separation, and there would be no relief. This goes on to say, and this is now 22:12, numerous and fiercely aggressive bulls surround me. These aggressively attacking supernatural serpents. They have besieged and crowned me in hostile fashion. The bull, par, means frustrated, broken, decisive, and ineffective. When you study the Babylonian religion and all of the religions really up to, including Egypt with their Apis cult, which is why the golden calf, the bull is essential. It was the strength of the bull that was always seen as representing God. And even for Easter, Easter is the Sunday, as in God, the sun god.
Sun god. Right.
Yeah, crossing the constellation at high noon of Taurus the bull. The sun is seen in the constellation of Taurus the bull. And so bulls represent the manifestation of Satan's influence in politics and religion. And so these supernatural, aggressively attacking beings, these serpents, Bashan, these snakes, another metaphor of Satan, they're the ones that are besieging Yahweh's soul in Sheol. Because Sheol was made to incarcerate Satan and his fallen demons, as well as all of those that are influenced by him in this life. And so that is who is tormenting Yahweh's soul. You know, the torment on Matzah was infinitely worse than the torment on Pesach, even though he was rendered nothing but a crimson grub, beaten and then crucified. But that was nothing compared to enduring these aggressive bulls, these supernatural serpents that are besieging.
Well, eventually your body would die and pass out, but in Sheol, it don't pass out. It's awake.
That's correct.
Every 100% awake. I mean, it sees everything, feels everything. So, God, it's a horrible thought.
Yeah, horrible. And they say, he's saying now that they open their mouths against me like a fearsome beast, plucking and tearing me apart while roaring loudly. You know, the demons are accusing him. You know, and rightly so, by the way, because
he's got all the sins on him.
He's got them all with him. So they're mocking him. They're mouthing off against him. They're fearsome beasts, which means they're associated with Babylon and Rome and the Roman Catholic Church, and they're tearing him to pieces while attacking him loudly, vociferously. That's what religious and political people do. And then this next statement actually explains what he endured on Pesach's pole. It says, as water I am poured out and emptied, and yet all of my substantial bones are stretched, separated, and out of joint. My heart was like wax. It has melted, wasting away along with my body. Like sun-baked dusk, my vigor and strength are withered and failed, and my tongue cleaves to the roof of my mouth. So upon the precipice of the dust of death, they have placed me. Now, we're still recording, but no longer broadcasting. But this really describes crucifixion. And keep in mind, this describes crucifixion 500 years before the Assyrians invented crucifixion as a form of torture to subjugate and humiliate people. And about 900 years before the Romans took it the next level with their nails, because the Assyrians tied people to a post. The Romans nailed them. So as water, I'm poured out and emptied. And that's part of this process, is that the fluids in your body go down into your abdomen to a way that your mouth is parched, your lungs are burning and dry. Even if you were given water to drink and you're not, your body is drying up while your lungs themselves are being flooded. So you're drowning in your own fluids, which are in all the wrong places, because you feel like your whole body is going to feel like it's dying of thirst as you're drowning in your own body fluids in your lungs.
God.
This is the medical means to explain how.
No, it is. But wow. Yeah.
And then it says that all of my essential bones are stretched, they're separated, they're out of joint. Well, that's exactly what happens. It pulls like where your arms are out on those on the horizontal beam, and you're hanging there, and you can't push up because it's your feet that are nailed to this post, and it's so anguishing to pull up, and yet you have to push up because you can't breathe because your diaphragm won't work when you're hanging from your arms. So it's if you don't push up, you can't breathe, and if you do push up, the anguish is not only prolonged but becomes excruciatingly painful. And so that's what's being described here. And it even talks about the bones. They are stretched, they're separated, they're out of joint. They're parted and diverged. The Christian wants to say that they're not broken, but that's not what it says here. They're separated, they're out of joint.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is like wax, it has melted, wasting away within my body. And again, the fluids for a crucified victim, because of the way that the diaphragm no longer works, the way that you're hanging on your arms are stretched up, and the way that affects your diaphragm and ability to breathe, toxins build up in your body, and these toxins are such that your heart muscle, for example, doesn't get enough oxygen, and that it's getting an overwhelming amount of toxicity in the blood, because the blood is not passing through the heart and being cleansed properly, not carrying the proper amount of oxygen, not flowing through the body in the proper way. Because, in our bodies, everything flows downward to our feet, and then it's by flexing our muscles and the one-way joints that we push that blood back up so that it goes back through our heart and is both cleansed on the way and then reoxygenated. You can't
do any of that.
Compress the muscles in your legs and your thighs and your abdomen which then cause that blood to flow back up, and so your heart just becomes like wax, melts away. Like sun-baked dust, you lose your vigor and strength. If you're unable to get oxygen to your muscles, what happens?
Oh, the atrophy. I mean, you just
and you lose your vigor, you lose your strength. Your body withers and fails. And if all of your fluids goes down into your lungs because you're not able to operate your diaphragm, then your tongue cleaves to the roof of your mouth.
It's sticky.
So this is a vivid explanation of exactly how crucifixion kills.
Who could question this inspiration? I mean, this inspired. I mean, this is just too 21st century knowledge.
Yeah, well, the reason that it's questioned, and by the way, this is what happened in the first century CE. There wasn't anyone that actually understood this from a medical perspective until about 1900 CE.
Yeah.
And this was written in 1000 BCE. So this was written by Dode, who was taken forward in time, 33 CE, when he himself was living in 1000 BCE, with an extant copy of this amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls dating to 200 BCE, talking about an event that would occur in 33 CE, using terms and medical diagnoses that would not be understood until 1900 CE. And all you have to do is look what the words say, and yet nobody wants to do it. How many Christians go off and say, I understand that Yosha was the Pesach El, the Passover lamb, because he cited Mizmor 22, and I read Mizmor 22, and I come to understand the whole process of crucifixion. How about zero?
Yeah,
right. You can't be a Christian if you're looking at Yosha as the Passover lamb. If you realize that this whole thing was the fulfillment of Passover, you can't be a Christian anymore, because that would mean that he is fulfilling the Torah and that he was Torah observant. So you just ignore it. And if you're a Reformed Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Jew, you're doing everything you can to deny Yosha. You're not only denying the whole concept of the celebration of Passover, you're denying your people even the benefit of Passover. You won't even put a piece of lamb on the plate.
Boy.
You've completely denied
in that light. Wow. Yeah. Jeez.
In 4,000 Yah. It's just so pathetically sad.
I guess.
How Jews have done this to themselves, and how Christians have turned and made a religion out of Jesus Christ, and they attribute every attribute to him except the one that defines his purpose. Well, fellas, I think this is a good place for us to stop. We'll pick up with Mizmor 22:16 a week from today.
It's a wonderful presentation, by the way. I read it again. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it is, and it's really good for us, because one of the things that has been transformative for us is the recognition that there is a Messiah, there is a Son of God, there is a King of Kings.
And they didn't have different roles. This is one.
Right, there is a firstborn, there is a chosen one, there is a shepherd. And this individual is Dode, the beloved of Yahowah. And because we have been so consumed with who Dode is and what Yahowah promised for him and through him and to us because of him, we've rightly focused on this because we want to call the chosen people home, and the chosen people have a Messiah. He has been here before, and he's returning. He's Dode. They have a king. He's been here before, and he's returning to be their king. That God does have a son. There is a son of God. It's Dode, according to Yahweh. We've spent so much energy coming to appreciate Yahweh's focus on Dode that it's lovely, and this is actually the last chapter of Coming Home. It's lovely to see Dode turn his attention to Yosha and speak of the fulfillment of Passover in the role that Yosha played in the fulfillment of Pesach. Dode fully recognizes that Moshe and Yosha all contribute mightily to the plan that Yahweh has established in our ability to come home. And so when we focus on Dode, we're not discounting Yosha.
No.
We're giving Yosha
He wrote this for us to know about him.
Right.
How could you be discounting him?
Yeah. We're not discounting him. We're actually attributing him with the very thing that he did, which is the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Makotim for our benefit.
Which is the thing Christians take away from him.
Which is the thing that they take away from him. Yep. We're giving it back. And all the things they attribute to him, we're giving them back to where they rightly belong as well.
Back to Dode, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. What a gift we have. Wow.
It is a tremendous gift. And speaking of gifts, my little dog, Asher, is snoozing right here. Oh, she heard me say her name. She's looking up. I was a good listener.
Ready to go out now.
I'm ready to go out now, but I was doing really good listening, and now I'm ready to go out.
Yes.
Want to go out? Yeah, we'll go out and take a little walk.
Okay, yeah.
She loves her new
enjoy
house.
that.
Yep, up on the hill here, just a few hundred yards from where we are here on the boat. And it's nice to be able to go back and forth between the two. We actually have a swimming pool there, which Asher and I had a little swim today between gardening. And we now have internet at the house, and I should be set up to be able to do the show there beginning next week. So
cool.
And it's nice to have
things are working out for you.
internet. Yeah, things are looking up, and so we're excited about that. So it's been lovely here to be here. So see you next week. May Yah bless. Happy Shabbat, and thank you, Yah, for fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Makotim on our behalf, so that we could become immortal, perfected, and adopted into your family. May Yah bless everyone. Good night.
Good night.